As requested by a commenter, in this video, I am going to show possible ways to learn like Batman. Before I begin, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe. The first step is the pre-game, which is all the things you have to do before you begin studying, such as, in order of importance, 8 hours of sleep, a good diet, and a consistent exercise regime. Skipping out on any of these could have detrimental effects on your learning process. And in terms of diet, as we are talking about learning like a superhero, you may want to use supplements associated with boosting brain function. Next is picking the subject you want to learn. I chose Python as I have wanted to learn it anyways, and I'm using this video as my motivation to really try. This is an important step, as to have something pushing you to learn the subject, like deadlines, can keep you consistent. Once you decide on a subject, the second step is to look for resources needed to learn about it. Another reason I chose coding, as all you really need is a computer with all the material free on the internet. If your subject requires a resource that isn't easily accessible, like for example a cadaver for a medical student, it may be best to put off that specific part for a later time. Now, I prefer my main studying source to be videos, as they are more dynamic than just reading, and it gives me a rough estimate on the time I would spend on each video, plus 10 to 15 minutes of me pausing to get a better comprehension. If you're going to choose lectures or textbooks, there are specific techniques that can be found on YouTube for a better understanding, and I'll link a video for studying textbooks down below. As for using videos, the most popular one will usually have the least mistakes, and from there you want to look at the aesthetics of each video. This isn't a necessary step, but makes the process easier. What I mean by this is like clear audio, inflection in the voice, maybe some graphics like the YouTube channel Kurzgesagt. Lastly, for aesthetics, you may want to improve the aesthetics of your actual study area, and you may want to use music while studying. Classical music, for example, may have some benefits according to Healthline, but there are some drawbacks as well, so it seems dependent on the individual themselves. The next section is actually studying. First is determining the amount of time you'll spend each day learning the subject. And from a quick search, the number seems to vary, so it could be person to person in terms of their understanding of the subject over another, or just their specific level of focus and interest in the topic. But personally, a time constriction of 2 hours max seems like a good option. The reason for 2 hours or less is so that you don't become so frustrated or overwhelmed with the subject matter, which can possibly lead to you despising the topic. You can increase the hours as you progress with the subject and feel comfortable doing so, and/or it fits your schedule for that day. Within these 2 hours, I would recommend using the Pomodoro technique, which breaks down the 2 hours into 25 minutes of studying and 5 minutes of a break, which totals to an hour and 40 minutes of studying and a 20-minute break. Essentially, it allows a larger task to be broken up into manageable parts, with the 5-minute break being seen as both a recharge and also a way to reward yourself for studying for those 25 minutes. Now, what I did during those 2 hours was first go through some of the basic definitions of Python characters such as strings, booleans, while loops, for loops, etc. I handwrote these down, as unlike typing on a laptop, the slower process of handwriting forces the writer to interpret the info by putting it into their own words, as opposed to copying it with the computer, according to The Benefits of Handwritten versus Digital Note-Taking in College Lectures by Abby Stevens. If the subject you chose has a lot of info to take notes on, then it would be better to type the notes first then at a later time interpret it via handwritten notes. After the basic notes, I just began doing projects, focusing on easy but fun projects, which I think is important to keep your interest alive. So not building calculators, but things like rock, paper, scissors, or automating my mouse cursor. I would recommend having a small project, taking 15 to 20 minutes each day, and one relatively larger project, a couple of hours, which you can break down over a week or so. Completing these small projects each day can give you quantifiable data on your progression, like, oh, I didn't fully understand this specific concept, but I did 5 projects this week. It also helps cement previously learned information if you use similar projects, which is called spaced learning, where you're exposed to information with intervals. The longer projects is to expose yourself to more complicated topics in the subject, or you could also sub on certain days and learn a specific topic in the field, for example, object-oriented programming, machine learning, depending on where you are. Make sure as you do all this to pause when you don't understand a concept, and then either look it up right then and there, or make a note of it and come back to it at a later time. And each time the video moves on to the next topic or project, you want to use the Feynman technique, which is you learn some of the basics, then try to teach what you learned to an imaginary child, identify the gaps in your knowledge, go back to fix that, and then reorganize it into a simple explanation. Similar to the handwritten notes, it forces you to interpret the info by putting it into your own words. With your formal studying, you also want to do some supplemental studying. There are 2 main sections. First is the use of mobile apps to study on the go. Whether you're commuting, waiting in a lobby, or any time when you have a couple of minutes to kill, you can pull out your phone and practice. The apps that I currently use are SoloLearn and Codecademy Go. Both give you simple questions on Python, which can also assist in retaining basic concepts via spaced learning. If your subject doesn't have an app for it, you could also use Quizlet. The other section is cultural immersion, where you would peruse subreddits such as r/programming humor for coding, or watch video skits associated with a chosen subject, like from Jomatech or Frying Pan. The reason for this is number 1, it feels very informal, so I don't feel like I'm actually studying, but it allows me to pick up jargon used in the field that may not be covered in the formal study sessions. It also helps you learn common issues people face, see what parts of the subject is focused in a job environment, etc. Using these methods, there's a good chance you can comprehend your chosen subject depending on the consistency and motivation that you keep. Thank you all for watching, and if you want to show some support to the channel, you can hit the join button for $2.99 a month, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe.